Welcome back. Today we are taking a really dark, epic dive into the 2025 sci-fi blockbuster Avatar: Fire and Ash. If you felt the emotional weight of the previous films, well, brace yourself, because director James Cameron opens a profoundly brutal and philosophically rich chapter with this one. Our goal for this explainer is to give you a clear, quick summary so you can easily grasp the overarching plot. Specifically, we're going to zero in on the escalating main conflicts and that really deep underlying message about family that completely grounds this visually spectacular universe. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with A, family and Ash, look at the Ash people threat, and examine the fractures from within. Then we'll hit the climax and the ocean on fire before wrapping things up with the power of acceptance. Section 1 of Family in Ash, the aftermath of tragedy. You know, James Cameron weaves this heavy symbolism right into the title of the film itself. The story picks up just weeks after the devastating events of the second film, right as the Sully family is taking refuge with the oceanic Metcaina clan. Cameron masterfully uses the 5 stages of grief to frame the narrative tension here, and we see this most intensely with Neytiri. Her profound agony over losing her eldest son has metastasized into this extreme, consuming, and honestly borderline racist anger toward all humans. The ash of her grief is literally fueling a very, very dangerous fire. And this grief creates an incredibly tragic dual burden for Jake Sully. I mean, the guy is completely crushed by the impossible weight of his duties. As a leader, he feels forced to actually break Iowa's sacred laws, desperately scavenging weapons from the sunken RDA sea dragon just to prepare a defense against the returning humans. But as a father, he is really struggling and often failing to hold his emotionally fractured, grieving family together. He shifts so dramatically from that confident warrior we once knew to a man who is just paralyzed by these family burdens. Section 2. The Ash People threat, the external flames ignite. This brings us to the external plot catalysts. The spark that sets this whole thing off is Spider, the human boy who is biologically Colonel Quaritch's son. He suffers this really dangerous oxygen depletion incident. Realizing he's just not safe anymore, Jake and Neytiri try to send him back to the human resistance base. But guys, this journey turns into an absolute disaster. It's literally like a tense comic book spread come to life. Their convoy gets ambushed midair by the brutal men Quan, the Ash People. In the absolute chaos, Kiri instinctively channels Awa, miraculously granting Spider a living mycelia-breathing mask so he can actually survive Pandora's air. But despite that miracle, Spider still gets captured by the Ash People. And this sets up an unthinkable scenario. Jake and his mortal enemy, Colonel Quaritch, are forced into this incredibly tense, uneasy alliance just to track down the kids. Now, what's really interesting here is the terrifying escalation of firepower. The Ash People, led by this vicious matriarch named Varang, have completely turned their backs on Iowa. So when Quaritch arrives at their camp, he impresses Varang with the destructive power of firearms, forging this demonic alliance. He supplies her clan with assault rifles and flamethrowers in exchange for their backing to hunt down Jake and capture Spider, hoping to reverse engineer his new biological abilities. And even more unsettling, there's this dark, brutal romance that starts brewing between Quaritch and Varang. The external odds against the Sully family have quite literally never been higher. Section 3. Fractures from within. The psychological battles. But before we dive into the physical war, we really have to pause and ask, can a fractured family actually survive the flames of their own internal trauma? This sci-fi epic is visually stunning, for sure, but the story is entirely grounded in these deeply human struggles. The war outside is terrifying, but the war inside their minds, that might be what actually destroys them. We see these internal fractures taking a massive emotional toll, especially on the younger kids. Loak is driven to such absolute despair over the council exiling his Tolkien front, Peakan, which is heavily compounded by his father's perceived coldness, that he nearly commits suicide with a rifle. Thankfully, he's saved at the very last second by Kiri and Sierra. Meanwhile, Neytiri's consuming hatred is just totally blinding her judgment. And then Kiri makes a shocking discovery. She doesn't have a biological father. She is a clone, born from Dr. Grace Augustine's avatar by the sheer will of Awa. These internal crises are every bit as dangerous to their survival as the Ash People. And this brilliantly illustrates how the film tackles modern youth issues way beyond your typical blockbuster tropes. Fire and Ash so authentically reflects the very real mental health challenges, the loneliness, and the extreme pressure that teenagers face today. Loic's struggle for validation isn't just some side plot. It's a central pillar of the film's entire message about family support. The production team even took the brave and honestly necessary step of including suicide prevention hotline numbers right in the end credits. It's such a powerful reminder of the human element at the very core of this alien world. Section 4. The Ocean on Fire. The Mythic Climax. Okay, the pacing just completely explodes as we enter this multi-front ocean war. General Ardmore's RDA forces and the Ash people launch a relentless assault, basically massacring the highly intelligent Tulkun. The cinematic escalation here is breathtaking. First up, the rescue. Spider gets captured by the RDA, and Jake actually surrenders to save him. But in a daring move, Neytiri and marine biologist Ian Garvin literally smash Jake's execution cage with a bulldozer. No way, right? Then comes the tragedy. During the sprawling battle, we witness the heartbreaking death of Ronald in combat right after Neytiri helps deliver her baby Peril. And then, a really pivotal moment. On the run, terrified the RDA will use Spider's abilities to permanently colonize Pandora, Jake regretfully prepares to execute his adopted son. But paternal love triumphs over fear. Jake and Neytiri refuse to pull the trigger, and that choice leads straight to the rebirth, as Kiri and Spider reach the underwater spirit tree, unlocking the full, terrifying wrath of Awa. The way these external threats get resolved is just awe-inspiring. Mother Nature absolutely answers the call. A blind Tulkun exacts revenge, taking out the lead human hunter, Mick Scoresby. The massive RDA flagship gets pulled into this crazy magnetic flux devil anomaly and completely explodes. Kiri uses her immense spiritual connection to mentally overpower Varang, which saves her mother's life. And then we get this highly ambiguous, incredibly tragic final confrontation between Jake and Quaritch on these floating magnetic rocks. Quaritch actually catches Spider as he slips, saving his son's life, before throwing himself off the ledge into the fiery inferno below. Section 5. The Power of Acceptance. Rebirth from Ash. So the crucial point is that the ultimate emotional resolution comes down to 3 simple words. I see you. After the smoke clears and those intense battles finally wrap up, Jake and Neytiri make a conscious choice to let go of their hatred. They embrace Spider, officially accepting him as their own flesh and blood. Neytiri speaking those specific culturally sacred words to a human boy, that represents the absolute ultimate triumph of forgiveness over blind hatred. It is the thematic anchor of this entire overarching story. Which brings us to the final narrative beat, officially solidifying the film's core message about the bonds of kinship. Spider connects to the underwater spirit tree, and in this deeply moving sequence, he actually meets the spirits of the deceased, figures like Tsute, Netaim, and Grace. Through this connection, he is officially initiated by Ewa and the Na'vi as a true son of Pandora. The family's internal fractures are finally healing, the ashes finally washing away. Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. If love and acceptance can conquer the deepest ash of grief, what new trials are going to test this reborn family when they return? Avatar Fire and Ash leaves us with such an enduring message about family conflicts and the powerful hope of rebirth from destruction. But since James Cameron has already mapped out the sequels, we know for a fact the story of Pandora is far from over. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to unpack the stories that shape our world.